So thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Firstly, I'd like to thank the organizers for allowing us as Qualcomm to join this forum. I have to say this has got to be one of the most difficult sessions for me, coming after 4 regulators have spoken. It must be very clear to you that I am definitely not a regulator, so I probably do not have an opinion on the roadmap forward. It may not be apparent to all of you that I'm actually not even regulated as such, because Qualcomm has a rather unique business model, and we don't necessarily operate or sell product in the marketplace. But having said that, given the fact that TV whitespace discussion revolves around the UHF band, I thought I would focus my remarks on some policy conversations that are ongoing today, globally, regionally in Africa, in respect of the future use of this spectrum by both mobile and broadcasting services. And it shouldn't surprise you that my presentation is likely to be very short, because the distinguished gentlemen on this panel have stolen my thunder. They have spoken about all the things I had wanted to say. Nonetheless, I will bravely plod on. The title of my discussion is TV White Spaces and Dynamic Spectrum Africa Forum. I'm talking about TV white spaces and the decisions of World Radio Conference 12, implications and trends in sub-Saharan Africa. So very, very briefly, I will introduce to you who Qualcomm is, for those who don't know us. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about the resolutions and proceedings that have taken place within the ITUR that are relevant to our discussion today. A little bit about the digital dividend harmonization discussions that are ongoing in Africa, and some of the work that is going to inform how the two services relate in the UHF band. So very, very quickly, for those of you who do not know who Qualcomm is really an innovator, a leader in next generation mobile technologies. We've been around for about 27 years, and our ideas are powering technologies that converge mobile, communications, consumer electronics. We make wireless devices and services more personal, affordable, and accessible to people everywhere. Company, we're about 25,000 employees in 146 locations. In Africa, we have 3 locations in South Africa, Kenya, and in Nigeria. So our business model is very simple. We make R&D investments into core mobile technologies. We license out that technology to our partners, and through that, they energize the ecosystem, the mobile broadband system. Okay, so many of you, if not all of you, are familiar with the International Telecommunications Union, ITUR, and the fact that their main objective is to ensure interference-free operations of radio communication systems. And they do this through implementation of radio regulations and regional agreements, which are updated once every 4 or so years through World Radio Conferences. Now, regarding the UHF band, there is one resolution that has consumed the time of policymakers, operators, broadcasters, ever since WRC 12, and that is Resolution 232. You may not see it clearly here. But basically what that resolution did was to define a direction that ultimately may lead or will lead to broadcasting which had allocation from 470 to 862 megahertz being more or less moved to occupy a lesser bandwidth. So in other words, what Resolution 232 does, it calls on some replanning of the broadcasting spectrum. So whereas, as we have heard from many speakers here, that the broadcasting spectrum has not been used efficiently, it has been analog. We are moving to digital terrestrial television. But not only that, we are approaching a situation where broadcasting will be within 470 to 694 megahertz. The implication of that, and when I say the implication of that, I'm talking about what the ITU and the Africa Telecommunications Union have been doing through a series of meetings, regional meetings that have seen replanning of the broadcasting spectrum take place in Africa. There have been 3 meetings, and I'm really rushing through this because of time, and I keep going backwards. But there have been 3 meetings under the auspices of the Africa Telecommunications Union, which is the special purpose vehicle under the Africa Union Commission that looks after telecommunications. There have been 3 major meetings. The first meeting was a policy summit, but that has been followed by 2 Geneva 06 replanning meetings. The first one was held in Bamako. It was attended by about over 20 countries in the western and central sub-regions of Africa. The outcome of that discussion was that in all African countries, especially the ones in Western Africa from Bamako, it was possible to have 4 multiplexes that will cover each country. And it was felt that that would be sufficient for broadcasting now and in the future. A second meeting took place in Kampala that had all the Eastern and Southern African countries, plus some countries from Western and Central African countries. And they also came up with the recommendation to plan broadcasting so that each country has the possibility of a minimum of 4 multiplexes for broadcasting. Oh my gosh. Sorry about that. So for our discussion here, one would wonder, what is the relevance of this? I think the relevance is that given that there are discussions going on today, first of all, to replan the Geneva 06 plan to accommodate broadcasting in Africa as a region now and in the foreseeable future. We believe that the policy discussions around TV white space should somehow be done within a framework that is looking at the whole UHF discussion holistically. So by way of recommendations, I make an observation that, as we all know, 700 megahertz, there's so much momentum, and I think there is no contention that it's most likely that mobile will be allocated the 700 megahertz band and 800. However, when you're talking about the replanning, what is it that we can do to ensure, first of all, to the broadcasters that for now and in the future, they will have sufficient interference-free spectrum going forward? The second piece of comfort is there any potential difficulties at the boundary between mobile and broadcasting? Where does TV white space play when you look at the interference between the mobile service and the broadcasting service, which is actually a subject of great discussion now within the ITU, are thinking about the out-of-band emissions that may cause interference on either side. And thirdly, for us to ponder, in our industry at least, there's a lot of talk about convergence when we will not be talking about broadcasting or mobile. So in the era of convergence, is there anything we should be talking about now? For instance, do we make decisions that say we are going to always have broadcasting between 470 and 694? What if, as is being discussed within the ITU in other regions, what if there was a decision to free up the entire band from 470 to 862 to both broadcasting and mobile because of convergence? So I have no solutions, ladies and gentlemen, and I haven't offered any roadmaps, but I would appeal to yourselves that as you collectively discuss have these policy discussions on TV white space, to make it a regional discussion so that the whole region moves together, and also factor in all the other conversations that are taking place around the UHF spectrum. Thank you.
Yes. So, thank you very much. I think we have heard very interesting thinking and plans for different countries. And what I get from this, I can see that I have two countries which are on a trial and adopt mode. You can hear me? Hello? I can see two countries which are in trial and adopt mode, and two countries which are a little bit more careful to say, okay, let's study a little bit more. Let's be cautious about implications with the digital transitions and so on. And also Elizabeth, who is going on that line. So just to clarify one point, I think as Andy mentioned this morning, TV white space, as the technology is developing, has no impact in terms of at least policy development regarding the UHF band, since that there is a database that's going to sense what's happening out there and take into account what different transmitters that are in your area. So maybe Andy can talk a little bit more about it. So we have 10 minutes for questions. I'll give the floor to Steve Song first.
Thank you. Just one point of clarification. WRC 2012 does explicitly mention television white spaces and says that because it's a secondary use of spectrum, there is actually no need to come up with a World Radio Congress regulation on this spectrum because of its dynamic use and its secondary status. So I think it's very good to have regional coordination, but I don't think in any way it holds back a country from experimenting with TV white spaces, because the regulator retains control and is able to scale up or scale back the use of that spectrum according to how other technologies evolve. And it's, it can quite happily coexist with new digital terrestrial channels and with new mobile bands in the 700 and 800 megahertz band. So I think there's room enough for everyone. And the question I would like to pose to the regulators, is based on that, is it really necessary to wait for all the other infrastructure to be in place before you can proceed with the trial?
Okay, I'll give maybe Borov to answer that.
Ok, merci. À la question de savoir si il est nécessaire de déployer les infrastructures avant de passer à l'implémentation des TV White Space. Dans le cas du Niger, je dirais oui, puisque en termes d'infrastructures dédiées pour le haut débit, il n'en existe pratiquement pas. Donc, ça ne sert à rien de permettre à l'abonné d'avoir 50 voire 100 mégabits d'accès, alors que de l'autre côté, il y a une congestion. Donc, dans le cas spécifique du Niger, je pense que oui, puisque vraiment, en termes de backbone, il n'existe pratiquement pas. Donc, ça ne sert à rien donc, de se précipiter pour aller vers l'accès au débit à l'utilisateur, alors que de l'autre côté, on ne peut pas lui garantir qu'il puisse avoir accès derrière donc, au service. Et au-delà de cette limitation d'infrastructure, il y a d'abord le cadre réglementaire qui n'est pas approprié pour le Niger. Parce que comme je vous l'ai dit, il faut au Niger, avant d'utiliser les bandes de fréquence pour offrir certains services, il faut un ticket d'entrée. Donc il faut une licence, appel d'offres, etc. Or, le concept des TV WiSpace, c'est de faire, comme le Wi-Fi ailleurs, licence free. Donc il faudrait déjà qu'il y ait cet ajustement-là à faire donc, au Niger. Donc je pense qu'il y a des préalables qu'il faudrait régler d'abord avant donc d'aller. Et last but not least, il y a ce dividende et cette migration qui constitue donc des doubles enjeux pour nos gouvernements, où ils sont déjà engagés, où ils attendent probablement donc des retombées financières. Donc il faut d'abord déjà régler cela avant donc d'ouvrir donc un troisième chantier, je dirais. Mais de façon globale, pour le cas du Niger, c'est parce que peut-être qu'il n'y a pas une politique prospective qui permet donc de prévoir l'utilisation du spectre sur les 20 ans. Donc c'est pour ça que dans le roadmap, c'est la première des choses que j'ai commencé à annoncer, à savoir qu'il faudrait définir la politique du spectre sur les 20 ans, de telle sorte que à chaque time slot, on saura exactement quelle action il faudrait mener. Donc ce sont ces choses-là qu'il faudrait donc, régler d'abord pour le cas spécifique du Niger. Je ne sais pas pour le cas du Sénégal, ce qu'il en est. Merci.
Juste peut-être compléter pour dire que je suis parfaitement d'accord avec ce qu'il vient de dire, donc je ne vais pas me répéter. Par contre, la question de monsieur est assez précise, où je pense que quand même, rien n'empêche de faire les pilotes avant la mise en œuvre effective et l'opération commerciale des solutions TV Whitespace. Je pense que parallèlement, pendant qu'on s'attelle aux questions réglementaires, aux questions de stratégie de migration, etc., on peut bien mettre des projets pilotes pour voir un peu la réaction des populations, voir également, disons, d'un point de vue technologique, ce que ça va apporter. Voilà.
We're going to take one question. Yes.
Hi, just to the two regulators from Senegal and Niger. This is how we ended up in this mess in the first place. Considering we need to build policy, we need to adjust to policy, we need to start thinking, 20 years down the road, we'll still be discussing the need to build policy. This is something that needs to be happening yesterday, because we are, as Africa is probably behind, not even behind, we are classically way behind. And to start saying that we haven't even considered the future of the policy framework, we're here discussing it, but in actual sense, as I know how African countries operate, it will be another 5 years before you start seeing this being operationalized, because we're still evaluating what the legal framework will be. I'm worried about what's going to happen in Kenya, because the regulator and the ministry literally do not agree on the way forward for white spaces. So here I am in a country where we're going to need this. We literally need this right now, and the prospect of us continuing forward doesn't even exist, because they're still discussing it. So that, to me, is a very poor way of approaching it. You should have the same story happening literally right now, and what is ready should be used right now. What else is coming, it will follow when we need it. But this principle of first, let's put on a suit and take a picture, that doesn't help anybody in the long term.
Contribution from an ambitious entrepreneur in Africa. Thank you for your point of view. I'll take another question. Or do you want to react on that? No? All right. The mic there.
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Neil from Newell. And really, just to follow up, similarly to the previous two questioners, even in what was called, I think, the trial and adopt phase, the two regulators there, you're talking about applying regulation no more or no earlier than 2 years away. So a challenge for you guys, really. I mean, we heard in the first half today a tremendous opportunity, a really exciting way of changing the entire continent. But here we are saying it's 2 years away from we can do that. As for a very self-interested view, as a device manufacturer, perhaps you'd explain to me why, as a device manufacturer, I would invest effort to create a product that I won't be able to sell for 2 years.
Yes, Chancellor.
Neil, you are posing difficult problems. I didn't say it's going to take 2 years, okay? But we have a statutory requirement of 30 working days to allow comment for each of those phases. So it's at least 3 times 30 working days, or 18 weeks.
Okay, Tijan here.
Merci. I'm really confused because I wanted to talk to English, but I think that I will be more comfortable in French, because my questions are very simple and very clear. Bien. Mon problème est vraiment très simple. Je suis un entrepreneur et en même temps un enseignant à l'université. Et depuis 1 mois, je travaille avec mes étudiants sur la fabrication et le test d'antennes dans le domaine de fréquence du Wi-Fi. Et comme par hasard, ces derniers jours, quand j'ai su que cette activité allait se passer au Sénégal sur le TV White Space, mes étudiants, un certain nombre de mes collègues chercheurs et moi, nous avons décidé de déplacer la bande de fréquence sur laquelle nous allons travailler pour nos étudiants vers les bandes du TV White Space, avec tout ce que cela comporte. Donc ma question c'est, concrètement, qu'est-ce que je peux faire légalement au Sénégal pour pouvoir faire ces tests avec les étudiants? Et la deuxième question que je pose à la salle, si certains équipementiers sont prêts à collaborer avec nous, à nous aider, nous avons un peu d'argent de côté, nous sommes intéressés à faire ces tests-là ici au Sénégal parce que nous avons vraiment trop de problèmes. Merci.
Merci Tidjane. Je pense que Pape Siri est là et il pourra répondre à ta question.
Merci. Bon, je pense je vais me répéter parce que là, point de vue expérimentation, test, à la limite, rien ne s'y oppose. Peut-être qu'il faut juste mettre les formes. Donc, vous pouvez bel et bien continuer à faire vos expérimentations, tailler vos antennes sur les bandes de fréquence, peut-être en dessous de 694 mégas ou 98 si vous voulez, et continuer à faire vos mesures. Bon, par contre, là où il va falloir certainement peut-être un peu plus de formalisme, c'est au moment peut-être du déploiement commercial d'un réseau sur donc la techno des TV White Space. Bon, c'est un peu ça. Merci.
All right. So the question to device manufacturers is just open. I'll take you and Mohammed and Kai, and we're going to close. Sorry, guys, just 2 questions.
Yeah, mine is going to be a comment and a contribution. I think the fact that regulators are still thinking of what to do should not stop more testing and more trials in country. And since the spectrum is in country, regional collaboration is not really necessary. So each country should make effort to do more testing. And just like Calvin said earlier, since it's not in a commercial environment, the test will show what is happening in each country. Because right now, I know from what Helen said, no country in Africa, to the best of my knowledge, have a database of what is available and the spectrum split that is available. So if we don't have that, we can continue to do the testing while the regulators take time to fix whatever they have to fix. But it should be encouraged and should be a forum that this should be a forum to encourage each country to make effort to do a lot of the testing that is necessary to see to what extent they'll be able to use and deploy TV white spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Kai.
Well, first of all, I would like to say, I don't think testing is necessarily the order of the day. We know if you have a database, we know if you feed the database with where are transmitters, there is no need to test something that you can prove physically and mathematically, that if you have a certain output power, input power, you have a certain noise level, it will interfere, it will not interfere. I think that's very proven over the last 50 years how frequencies work. If a country wants to do a test, everybody is free to do it. But what I would like to pose as a question to the regulators is, where is the fear coming from? If regulation is about protecting primary services, and we all agree that the regulation, the overguiding principle is we protect primary services, isn't it the risk of the equipment manufacturer and the risk of the entrepreneur who is using TV white spaces to comply to this protection requirement, not to interfere? And if they use the wrong technology, if they use the wrong deployment, they will be shut down. They have the financial risk. Why do we try to regulate? That's now a question, really question for me, which I would like to understand. Why do we try to regulate something that we can't understand before we have deployed it? So it's a chicken and an egg, and we go into endless testing and we go into endless discussions. And at the end of the day, we have missed a great opportunity, in my opinion. For me, why is there such a fear in simply enforcing what is already regulation, which is protecting primary services, and then allow everybody else to take a risk to use it as a secondary, and if it interferes, we shut it down?
Excellent question from Kai. Yeah. Yes, because TV white space will be actually on secondary basis. So yeah, excellent point. So do you want to react here? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Kai. Good question. Can I point you to the American experience? I point you to the American experience. And the reason I point you to the American experience is because African broadcasters can read newspapers. African broadcasters can read the news. African broadcasters understand what happened in the rest of the world, and they're perfectly capable of prevaricating and obfuscating and obstructing. And where a party, whether that party is a broadcaster or a telecommunications operator, if they feel that their interests are threatened, then they will take action to try and prevent that from happening. And as a regulator, one has to strike a balance. What a regulator aims for is for the good, the general good. Okay, we're aiming for the best overall balance of good for the society as a whole. That's operators of all kinds of operators, the public and the state. And that requires making unpopular decisions, and that sometimes requires also soothing ruffled feathers and making people feel a little bit less aggressively anti the process. So what's happened in the US and in the UK is that trials were held specifically for the reason to demonstrate what you and I as engineers know is perfectly true. It is capable to make a transmission with one transmission without that transmission interfering with another transmission. As an engineer, we know that's obvious, but that needs to be demonstrated to people who are not engineers. And that's what's happened with the UK and the US tests, and that's what's happening with the South African test. And hopefully, once that's been done, it'll be done and won't have to be done again.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Last point, I think, I hope that we won't get into a cycle of endless tests and pilots around all African countries. So thank you, guys. We will... Yes, we have to come back here at 4:55 because we have remote participation from FCC and Industry Canada. So we need really guys to be on here sharp 4:55. Let's go to break. There are also demos happening. Thank you very much.